Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View. Nobody is exempt from criticism last night, and for once I actually find myself agreeing with Chris Boyd, and I think that we all do. I mean, there's a lot of people saying, look, give Taylor the money. There's a lot of people saying, a lot of people have been crying out for a new left back for about 4 years.
There is. Celtic have got a problem on that left-hand side of defence now. I mean, I know he was disappointed with Trusty in terms of defending it. You go back to the cup final, Scales in terms of him coming on, and then he takes Trusty off, then Scales comes on. Scales plays the last Old Firm game and he was really, really poor. Listen, Celtic are way ahead in the league, and sometimes the complacency can set in. But Brendan Rodgers will know they need to turn up for these next two Champions League games. They're huge games for the football club. They need to turn up. That left-hand side of defence is an issue for him because you even see Trusty just beforehand as well with Donnelly. And I know you speak about I'm getting beat for the header. He's stood in his toe and he's rolling about, grabbing his toes. Like, you've got to be a centre back. You've got to stand up.
He's speaking about being passive and not aggressive enough with the ball, but he's actually speaking about Simon Murray on Trusty for the second goal, and Trusty on Donnelly for the third goal. He's putting it round everyone, but he's letting Trusty know, listen, that's not acceptable.
But he's right, though, of course, because it's cost them goals, and he sets really high standards, which the team maintain for long, long times. But when they drop off the standards, then there needs to be told.
Yeah, there needs to be a little kick up the arse. I could only imagine the bus trip back to Celtic Park last night would have been Brendan Rodgers. And I think Brendan he would just sit with his staff and just ignore the players on the bus, wouldn't he? I think he would have said enough in the dressing room after the game to let the players know. I mean, there was umpteen players, but Trusty and Cameron Carter-Vickers, another own goal by Cameron Carter-Vickers. It doesn't go too well, and Liam Scales is meant to be sitting thinking on the bench, what have I done wrong to get dropped so consistently? Well, for 2 yards of pace, I mean, it is a position that the left back position is a position that we've all agreed has needed sorted for some time, and now there's a hurrah to keep Greg Taylor at the club. When the exact same people have been saying for about 4 years now that we need a new left back. We've brought in several left backs, but they've not been able to do it. Brendan Rodgers said about the game yesterday,
in terms of the end result, I thought for the first 40 minutes we were really comfortable in the game. We got off to a great start how you'd want to. Sometimes the problem is when you have so much of the ball, you can become a little bit passive with and without it. And then we conceded just before half time, and then the second half I thought we were really disappointed.
Yeah, we were disappointed. It's not a term that we should be using, but the team were terrible. When you look at the start that we had, it was absolutely brilliant by Luke McCowan. He grabbed. I tell you one thing, Callum McGregor's got to be looking over his shoulder, thinking, "This Luke McCowan's a decent young player that could take my shirt away from me," and Callum McGregor will know that as a Celtic player, because he'll know that he'll know that when a player comes in and achieves things in that midfield, someone's getting knocked out the team, and it could be Callum McGregor in the next few months that gets knocked out the team for Luke McCowan to come in and hold that regular position. I thought it was a bit unfair of him getting dragged off last night, but you can understand why the manager did it. The pass from Luke McCowan to Greg Taylor was phenomenal, and then the diagonal ball for Greg Taylor to find Luke McCowan at the edge of the back end, coming that run in the box was just fantastic, and the header for Luke McCowan was brilliant, and the writing was on the wall. You're like, fantastic, great start to get into the game, absolutely brilliant start. But then even Brendan Rodgers is moaning about it now. And it's a lot of people are saying, well, it's Brendan ball, isn't it? The side-to-side stuff. But Brendan said, no, that's not the way that I want my team's to play. He has said in the media over numerous occasions that he wants fast attacking football.
You give credit to Dundee. They get the goal just before half time, and then it gives them a little G up for the second half. But for us, our level was not good enough second half, and we have to be much better than that.
Any reason for that, do you feel?
They just went passive. We lacked aggression, both against the ball, duels, then our passing is sidewards or backwards, not aggressive enough positioning, and so yeah. I mean, listen, we fight right to the very end, and we get the point.
Were Celtic lucky to get the point? I mean, it was a penalty all day long. There's no dispute about it. It didn't even need to go to VAR. The guy's got his arm up like that. Everyone around the stadium knew it was a penalty straight away. There was no VAR needed, and there was no disputing the fact that it was a penalty. And they will feel that it was a silly mistake by the player that's given Celtic a point. Celtic were there for the taking last night, and hats off to Dundee, who had put in a fantastic performance.
But we let a game get away from us that we had so much control for 40 minutes, and like I say, give credit to Dundee because they fought themselves back into it. But when I look at us, we have to be much better than that.
A lot better.
In particular, that third goal for Dundee, was that just too weak from the set piece?
Yeah.
I mean, from a corner, allowing a team to break away in the manner it did, and the fact that there was 4 Celtic players around them. We do this in the Champions League, and we play like that down in Birmingham. And I tell you one thing, we're going to get ripped apart. It's as blatant as that. If we play like that down in Birmingham, even if they've got players out, I fear for another Borussia Dortmund type score against Celtic. I think the young boys at Celtic Park should do enough to help the players get up for the occasion, but it shows the weaknesses within that game last night. Will have reiterated the fact that Brendan Rodgers knows the players that he wants in. We all know that he wants a winger in. There's talk of another striker. Is Johnny Kenny going to get a bigger role to play? When you look at Adam Ida, we'll listen to what Neil Lennon says about him in a second, but there's just far too many players not playing at a high enough standard on a week-to-week basis, and just not playing to their optimum. Let's face it.
We talked about that inside. You're centre half, you've got to be strong, you've got to be aggressive, and you've got to win your header.
Brendan Rodgers telling it as it is. The centre half, you've got to win your header.
Like your team, that is, then that probably tells you how high the standards has been set. Do you just put that down to moving on now and learning the lessons tonight?
We'll always reflect. I think that's important. Every game is there's always something that you take from it, whether you play or win or lose or draw. But there's lessons for us there. As I said, it was a game we had total control of and never looked in any danger whatsoever. And then we, second half, as I said, it just becomes a little bit sort of end-to-end, really. We lost control of the game. So, but in fairness to the players, we fought back well, get the point. And if you can't win it, then don't lose it. But for our standard and for our level,
that's something that we would never hear Brendan Rodgers talking about before, and I think that reading between the lines, and you're looking at Brendan Rodgers' expression, you can feel that he feels that he's being let down by some players, and he's not going to throw them under the bus. He's not going to come out and mention names, but you know what he's talking about.
We have to be much better than that.
Given it is January, just wonder if there's any updates of ins and outs in terms of this month so far?
Nothing as of yet. I'll probably find out over the next couple of days.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Luke. Thank you.
Interesting. Find out over the next couple of days about ins and outs within the transfer market. Now let's listen to Luke McCowan, because I thought he is a player, isn't he? He just looks as if he fits. That Celtic shirt was born to fit that player. If there's ever a player that's came into Celtic and you're like, yep, you were meant to be a Celtic player, Luke McCowan, it just oozes out of him, doesn't it?
Park.
Probably not the result we were looking for as a team, to be fair. Obviously it's good to kind of get the goal to kick us off, but I think initially in the first 40 minutes we should try and kind of kill the game and try and put a sight, but we were just a wee bit too passive at times and kind of gave Dundee a bit of oxygen. So it's just one of the nights. It's
one of the nights, but I've got to say, when the first half an hour, absolutely everything was going through Luke McCowan, and you would think that would be the balls would be coming from Callum McGregor, and he would be controlling the midfield. Absolutely every ball, every opportunity, players were like, get it to McCowan and let him do his stuff. Get him in the holding berth Right, get him, and maybe not even the holding berth, but just sitting in front of the defensive midfield, in the centre of the pitch. And Luke McCowan is going to run games for us. Yeah, and in the SPFL, I think he is one player that can improve significantly at his time at Celtic. Definitely, 100%. When you see that performance, the first half an hour last night, that's a player that's busting his gut. Absolutely busting his gut to play for us, and busting his gut. He knows what it means, and because he is one of us. I mean, you can talk about Adam Eder being Irish and everything, but I'll tell you one thing: Adam Eder needs to put his chances away, because there's one thing for sure: Norwich City done us over good time. As soon as Kyogo went down with that injury at the beginning of the season with his shoulder, as soon as he went down holding his shoulder, Norwich City went, "Yep, if you want him, it's 9 million." You know, it's 9 million. We could have got him for way less. The negotiations should have been done and dusted way before. But they had Celtic by the short and curlies. They had us by the goalies, and they went, "Yeah, if you want him, it's 9 million." And we paid it like that. Not even thinking about it. Not even thinking about the cost. But it's not Adam Eder's fault. If Adam Eder had only cost 3 million, people would say it was still 3 million too much. People weren't moaning about the fact that the cost of Adam Eder towards the end of last season. He had a fantastic end to the season. You can't dispute that. There's something not right with the way that Adam's pulling up and not going in for. I mean, he should be busting a gut to batter the ball into the back of the net, and he just doesn't. But anyway, it is what it is. Neil Lennon says, look, talking about Adam Eder, he says at times he's got to hold the ball up better. He's a big guy, he's got to hold it up, he's got to get on the end of crosses. There's one that came in at the far post. He more or less ducked out of it. He should be attacking it. I've seen Adam Eder do that too many times. He does it too many times. You try to defend Celtic players as much as you can, but when you're just hoping that they get that goal to get them on a run, and Brendan Rodgers tried to protect Adam Eder a little bit at the weekend, saying, look, I don't need my striker to score 25 goals. Some people are saying, look, every Celtic striker should be scoring 25 goals a season. There's not many strikers that do score 25 goals a season for Celtic on an ongoing basis, because they usually get sold the next season if they do. He went on to say, he says he played in the width of the box and making these runs outside channels, and he said inside the box, especially when you're in the final third, he's got to stay central and link up play a bit better as well. He was brought in as a target man, Adam Eder. He was brought in to be in that 6-yard box as a target man. And maybe he's not used to playing that position. And let's be fair, maybe he's not used to playing that central position, being a target man in the centre of the box. And Neil Lennon's right, you're getting dragged out wide here, there and everywhere, expecting Kyogo, who was playing as a winger, to then come into the box. Adam Eder was brought in as a big target man, and for some unknown reason, someone needs to grab a hold of him in coaching and say, look, just stand in the 6-yard box and make a fucking menace of yourself. Be a pest in the 6-yard box. You'll score goals all day long. You're a big guy. Stop running away to the wings. I mean, I can understand what he's trying to do, and he's trying to bring people into play, and we weren't moaning about it when he did that at the weekend, and it allowed Kyogo to get his couple of goals. But the majority of the time, he's not done it. You could go on all day about players that did not achieve last night. Let's listen to see what Brendan Rodgers said to Celtic TV.
Just give us your assessment on that one.
Yeah, disappointing result. First 40 minutes of the game should have been out of sight with some really good areas, at least some good positions. Made a good start in the game, scored a good goal, wasted some other opportunities, and then we conceded a disappointing goal just before half time, and then the second half we were too passive.
Very passive. A lot of people will be talking about the fact that it was just at the weekend that a certain amount of players managed to get onto the bench, and they all disappeared. When you look at it, that was the starting team last night. Schmeichel, Johnson, Carter Vickers, Trusty, Taylor, McGregor, Bernardo, McCowan in the midfield. You're thinking that midfield should be able to control that game. They got off to a fantastic start. Yang on one side, Yang did score a goal, his first goal of the season, and the Korean media are going absolutely bonkers about the fact that he scored his goal. And then you've got Kyogo and Adam Eder. Now, when you look at the bench, there is Scales, Palmer, Kuhn, Alex Baye, Johnny Kenny, Arnie Engels, Rio Hatate and Tony Ralston. It's who do you drop off that bench? Who do you drop off that bench to bring in some of the young players that got the nod at the weekend? For me, I was kind of hoping that some of them would have retained the position, but it's who do you drop off the bench? And Brendan Rodgers has got to try and make sure that everyone gets some game time with an important game this weekend. Yes, it's on the Scottish Cup game this weekend at Celtic Park. It's a must-win game. Yeah, there's no draw in this one for sure. It's a game that if we've got any aspirations at all on winning the treble, you have to win. It's as simple as that. The league is almost in the bag. There's no disputing that. Celtic are sitting on 60 points today, and it is a case of, we've got one hand on the title, but you can't take your eye off the ball. You cannot take your eye off the ball with Celtic, and I feel that that's maybe what some players did last night. They took their eye off the ball. They just a little bit passive, as Brendan Rodgers says, and just weren't good enough. They just weren't good enough. Let's face facts. We dust ourselves down, we get on with it. We're still top of the table. Goal difference of 53. I was hoping we were going to get to a goal difference of 55 last night. I never seen a 3-3 scoreline coming. A lot of predictions were saying that Celtic were going to score more than 3 goals to win the game. Well, they definitely scored 3 goals, but so did Dundee. Celtic sitting on 60 points. The Sevconians are sitting on 44. There's no catching Celtic between now and the end of the season. Dundee United sitting on 37, Aberdeen sitting on 35. They will feel that they have just let their season fade away. And Kilmarnock, who we play at the weekend, are in 9th position on 25 points. So even though there's a massive difference, Kilmarnock have done well to get themselves out that bottom relegation zone. They've put a bit of space between themselves and St Johnstone, 10 points. So you feel that they could still get dragged into the playoff positions. Along with Ross County and Hearts, but it is what it is, and it's another day in the office. It's another day at the office where Celtic could have done a little bit better. And Brendan Rodgers,
too passive in our defending and in our duels and everything, and then I
wonder if he's talking about a certain winger at that point. Too passive and not being able to take on players.
We obviously proceed to concede 2 poor goals. Plus kept going. We had some other chances. We keep going. We take the point. But we let a game get away from us that we were in a really, really good place in the game.
Yeah.
And that's obviously the disappointing side.
So one of the biggest frustrations, the fact that we dominated so much of the ball, so much of the play, but we just couldn't make maybe the final pass or the final chance count.
Yeah, no, we get into some really good areas, progress through the pitch. You could see the design of...
When you look at it, last night, sorry, I've just cut Brendan off there. When you look at it,
no necesitas
Brendan Rodgers and Celtic. Brendan Rodgers and Celtic had a massive portion, the team had a massive portion of the ball last night. They had 80%, and we both had 4 chances in goal. They only had 20% of the ball, but they managed to still have 4 shots on target. That really needs to be looked at. And, we've said that we had about 400 or 500 passes more than Dundee. We need to be more clinical in front of goal. It's as simple as that. Will Kyogo be sold? I don't think he's going to be sold this window. Ronnie Dyla and Kenny Miller have looked at another player, so they're not going to come back for Kyogo. But every player has his price at Celtic. And the fact of progression, and if Brendan Rodgers wants this team to progress, and especially when it comes to Europe, Brendan Rodgers will be looking at his strikers and he'll be saying, look, although these guys that are playing through the middle are getting some fantastic balls played into them, I mean, they should be scoring more goals, and Brendan Rodgers will know that. Brendan Rodgers has worked with many a top striker in his career, and he'll know that the chances that get created for strikers at Celtic should be put away. Will Kyogo be sold? I think he might be sold in the summer. Will Adam Ida be sold, and will Celtic take a hit on Adam Ida? Well, I'll tell you one thing, if Johnny Kenny lives up to expectation, Adam Ida may find himself on the bench a little bit more. And on that note, have an absolutely fantastic day wherever you are, Celtic fans all around the world.